Okay, so we're talking about the second wave of immigration. Now, on your notes, I would write this down as being between, boys, okay, as being the time period between the year 1880,
Which one?
or 1890, excuse me, 1890 to 1910. 1890 to 1910. Do you have your notes? Okay, you can go get some new ones if you'd like. They're in the box at the very bottom. Okay. So our second wave of immigration, though, is going to be a different situation than the first one that we talked about before. If you will write comparison next to this, okay? I'm trying to tell you, but you guys are really loud right now. Stephen and Sam B.
Oh.
You need to leave now. Okay, guys, we need to settle it down like 10 notches. Okay, so if you will make sure that you know that this is a comparison between the first wave of immigration, and I just want to emphasize that certain questions will already be on this quiz that you guys have after school. And if we don't get to it because you guys are being loud, I'm keeping it on there. And you can go study on your own. Got it? Okay, so you need to write next to this, compare to first wave, which remember is going to be the one from 1840 to 1860. Those are going to come from three countries. What are the three countries that comes from? Ireland, China, Germany. Good. Okay, so Ireland, China, and Germany. Now they're going to come from Southern and Eastern Europe. And I would highlight or underline that. Southern and Eastern Europe. And in particular, know that that's going to be the Russians and the Italians. If you have any heritage that is Russian or Italian, they more than likely came during this time period. Okay? Now, the reasons why they came, the most popular definition is, and what you need to circle or underline, is large cities with large factories and industries. Reason why is because they're the ones willing to hire cheap labor. It's dangerous. People don't want to actually have to do those jobs, so immigrants are going to take them instead. Now, you need to know what the major push factors were. Why would somebody want to come to the United States? If you will, in this one, circle or underline or highlight massive poverty. Now, what is that similar to when we talk about mass poverty and people are sending money home? How is that similar to what we talked about before? It's the Chinese, right? And the Irish. They went here to America, collected money, sent it back home. Now, if you look at a picture like this, by the way, this one's a little bit confusing because if you notice, it says the word Galway. Anybody know where Galway is? It's in Ireland, right? But obviously it's not in our thing. You have to make sure you know the time period. So if this political cartoon says something like 1889 or something like that, that's how you know it's the second wave of immigration. But if you notice, it says poorhouse. That's because they're sending money back home. Now, the other one is what is called a pogrom. And this is the one that you also need to circle, is the word pogrom. It's right next to where it says religion. Now, what happens with the pogrom is basically over in Russia, Russia had a problem. They felt like people who were Jewish were the problem. So what they decided to do is all throughout Russia, they decided to go into the cities. They said, if you're Jewish, come out to the streets. And they slaughtered them all. Tens of thousands of people who were Jewish died in Russia in these mass killings over the fact that they were Jewish. So why would you want to stay there? Well, you're going to come right over to America and be able to get religious freedom. So that's one of the major push factors during this time, is either poverty or trying to flee from physical and religious persecution. Now, there are two places, one more pull factor, by the way, if you want to see right here. We talked about this before. If you will also circle job opportunities, that's really the main reason most people are going to come, is they want new jobs. Okay? Now, with the two different places that they are going to go, they are going to go to either Ellis Island or they are going to go to Angel Island. And if you will bracket those two and put know the difference, You need to make sure that you know what the difference is between these two islands and where people are coming from. Now, I have a really nifty way of teaching you how to be able to remember this. And I'm only going to do it once in the year. So this is your one opportunity. Luckily, the video is not recording me this year, so you can't make a GIF of me. Okay? So, I'm going to teach you like a nifty little way to be able to remember this. Okay, you guys ready? I stretched earlier, but I haven't re-stretched, so hopefully it'll be okay. All right, ready? So, you have Ellis Island. And they come from Europe. You guys see how it's called alliteration. Okay, you ready? Okay, Angel Island. And where are they going to come from? Asia. Okay, that's it. So, thank you very much. I worked really hard on that, like years of practice. Now, I will tell you, I have legitimately seen in AP testing, kids go like this, and they go like this. Okay, so, yeah, you guys missed it. I'm sorry. When did they move the counseling center? Oh, you guys just took forever, is what I'm hearing. Okay, anyways, so legitimately, that's a great way to be able to remember this, is remember the EEAA. The most common mistake that I read on essays is people talk about how people from Europe went to San Francisco at Angel Island. Is that correct? No, because you should have gone EEAA, and you should have known the difference. Okay? So, yeah, you missed it again. I just did it again. Sam, why are you always missing things? Stories? Fun? Okay.
According to your note, I am all the fun, so it's true.
I didn't know. I said it was fun to make fun of you. That's what I said in your note.
Okay, but he causes the fun.
Okay. All right, now, okay, so with the Europeans, you need to make sure that you highlight or star that it is going to be in New York City. Oh, I need to put it in here. That's a candy cane. Okay, so you need to make sure that you know it's in New York City. That's a common thing that people misdo on this. Now, when you come into Ellis Island, okay, if you know about this, you're welcomed by the Statue of Liberty, which is technically on Liberty Island, so it's not the exact same thing. But this was actually a gift from who? Anybody know? France. Oh, look at you guys, all you AP kids. Now, it's going to come over from France as a gift, kind of saying, we know that France hates us because of the French Revolution, because we did not help them out. But this is kind of that reconciliation coming back together. They actually built it in several different pieces, so you can kind of see how big it is based on this. Now, when they built it in the different pieces, they brought it over, they built it up together. As you guys know, it is also a nice green, but that was not its original color. It was supposed to be copper. The problem is if you guys know when you have like cheaper jewelry, what color does it turn your skin sometimes? It's green. It's because of the oxidization of that copper. Now what happens is, that's why the Statue of Liberty is going to turn green. Now, if you guys know about Hurricane Sandy, which happened a couple years ago, completely devastated the East Coast. Ellis Island is on the East Coast. Most places along the sea border of New Jersey and New York were completely destroyed. In fact, this year when I went to Coney Island, it was the first year they had all the rides reopened since Hurricane Sandy. Well, the thing about it is that Ellis Island is on the ocean. So what occurred is that Ellis Island is going to go underwater by almost 7 feet. And they actually lost about 1.5 million artifacts from Hurricane Sandy that they're never going to be able to get back. So that's another reason you should always go to your national parks. Unless they get shut down after today with the government shutdown. But go to your national parks so that you can be able to go and see things before they get destroyed. But anyways, over in Ellis Island, when you arrive, you get what's known as the 60-second inspection. Now, the goal of this is basically to make sure that you are healthy enough to enter the United States. Altogether, almost 15 million people come through Ellis Island. You have to be quick. One of the things you're going to look for is what is known as conjunctivitis. Now, when you guys go to the eye doctor, they check this. If you've ever had your lid flipped inside out and then they shine a light in it, that's what they are looking for. It starts as a little bit of redness, then it goes to the back of your eyelid, then it goes back into your brain, into your eye cell vein, whatever connects your eye to your brain. Okay?
Optic nerve.
Sure, optic nerve. That sounds fancy. Now, what happens though is that eventually you can go blind. And the thing about this is it's so easy to be able to spread from person to person. If you bring it in, and if you just like rub your eye and touch a doorknob, somebody touches that doorknob and rubs their eye, they can get it too, and you're going to spread blindness throughout the United States. So instead, they do these inspections. Now what they do is they took this fun little hook.
Oh, no.
Guys are getting excited. They take this fun little hook, they then hook your lid, they pull it back, and then they look at your eyelid. And if it's severely red, that's how they know that you have conjunctivitis. Now remember, at this time when they're doing these inspections, they don't know how diseases are spread. And so they do your eye, wipe it off on their shirt, do it on the next person's eye. And by the way, if somebody has conjunctivitis, do they get a new one? No, not at all. Now, luckily for you guys, I do have another Christmas surprise for you. I have a hook from Ellis Island. It is in the baggie for a reason. Please do not remove it. We don't want late 1800s diseases coming out of this little baggie. Okay? Also, I didn't realize until like 2 class periods ago. Please don't try to put this in your eye, okay? That is called spreading disease, and that's really bad. So, keep it in, but you can see and imagine this getting like hooked on your eye, okay? Now, another thing they're going to be looking for during the 60-second inspection is what is known as ringworm. Ringworm is very similar to when we talked about the hookworm earlier. It gets through your hand, then it starts to make its way all the way up into your brain. Yes?
No. Not ringworm, I don't think. Isn't ringworm a fungus?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Well, so
It's a wormy fungus.
it's a wormy fungus. It looks like a worm. It's the easiest way to say it. Okay? Now what happens is it begins to make its way all the way up into your brainstem. Eventually it can also go into your heart and actually stop your heart from beating. But as it goes into your brainstem, you actually go and get these things called favors of the scalp, which basically favors of the scalp are all these little bald spots all over the back of your head, and it shows that you have this in your brain. Well, the thing is, they're going to treat you for it because we want to make sure that you guys don't have ringworm. So if you do, what they do is they're going to spread your head with a thing called turpentine. Anybody know what turpentine is used for in today's world?
No.
Paint thinner.
Yum.
And also kerosene gas. So imagine having your head doused in like kerosene. There's a reason it killed everything. It's because it's acid, and acid kills things. I mean, yeah, it also hurt you really bad and cause other effects. But hey, at least you got rid of the ringworm. So that's a good thing, right? Now, they always used to say, by the way, that whenever they would find these diseases, they would put you into the hospital. And sometimes as a little kid, you could be 6 years old, speak no English, and all of a sudden your family separated from you for 6 months. Now, some got deported. About 5% were deported. Other people were put in the hospital, but they would always say that the closer you got to the Statue of Liberty, the more likely you were to die. And then they would have the rooms that had the perfect view of the Statue of Liberty, and you knew you'd die within only a few days. Altogether, about 5,000 people died at Ellis Island from these diseases and were not deported. Now, this is an example, another one of disease is a thing called Typhoid Mary, which you might have heard of before. Typhoid Mary is an immigrant who comes over, and she is what's called a carrier of typhoid. Now, typhoid is basically a fever that when this fever comes, it gets into your brain. It makes your brain so hot and such a high fever, we're talking like 106, 108 degree temperature, that it quite literally fries your brain to the point that you cannot remember how to breathe and how to make your heart beat. So it eventually kills you. Now, the thing about typhoid is it is very, very contagious. Well, Typhoid Mary was a carrier, which means that she had the disease but did not show any symptoms. Well, what happens with Typhoid Mary is when she comes over to the United States, she was a cook over there, she's a cook here. She decides to cook for this family. Problem is, a couple months later, people in the family start to die off of typhoid. They realized it was her fault because when she was cooking, she was putting it directly into her food. A couple months later, they end up forcibly arresting her and placing her into her hospital for about 8 years to prevent her from spreading typhoid. She eventually sues, says that this is unconstitutional. They say yes, they let her go, but they said you can't ever be a chef again. Well, as an immigrant, do you know a lot of job skills? No, you know one thing. What does she know how to do? Cook. So what does she do? She goes and becomes a cook at a hospital. And so what happened is she goes and becomes a cook at a hospital, ends up infecting about 1,000 people, kills something like 40 people in the hospital, and she, for the rest of her life, she does get put back in jail because of this. More like a hospital jail, as in you're not allowed to leave. Now, another guy comes along named Laguardia, which might sound familiar to some of you because of
That airport.
that airport. That's right, it's named after LaGuardia. Now, LaGuardia speaks about 11 languages. He knows that he needs to be able to communicate with these people and figure out, are they able to mentally come into the United States? So we're going to see if you guys can mentally come into the United States. So we're going to ask you guys a question, and then we're going to vote on it. Okay, so here's a question. How many legs does a horse or a table have? Put your fingers up in the air of how many it has. Well, it's not 2 or 3, but really close. Okay, it is 4. Good, so you passed the first test. Well, let's make it a little bit more complicated for you guys. So then he would ask people this. When you sweep, do you sweep from top down or bottom up?
Top down.
Think about it. You should know this. You're the immigrant coming in with your job skills.
Top.
All right. Okay, let's see. Who says you're going to sweep from top down? Who says bottom up? And then who are like the 6 people who didn't raise their hand? Okay? Yeah, a couple people. So, first off, you as an immigrant coming over as a worker would have automatically known he's referring to steps, as in going up and down the steps. Now, if you sweep from bottom up, you sweep all the dirt right back to where you just swept it off. So you go from top down to prevent all the dust from going where you've already swept. Okay? Now, as time goes on, this guy comes around. I forgot to tell you. Hope nobody read it. Okay. So what happened, though, is one immigrant was coming over, and he got really, really sassy with the interviewer. They asked him this question, and he said, I didn't come to sweep steps, and they let him into the United States. So sometimes it does pay off to be a little bit sassy. Now, this guy comes along. Oops, by the way, this is LaGuardia Airport, so if you ever go there, you can think of LaGuardia and Ellis Island. This guy comes along who you might have heard of before. He creates a very important test. What is it? It is a BIDEC test, but what is that called today? It's called the IQ test. That's right. So, he is the creator of the IQ test. Now, the IQ test, as in the intelligence quotient test, the point of the IQ test is that, in theory, you can take this test at 6, 20, 78, and you will always get the exact same score. It is about a 7-hour test, given over 3 days. It is quite extensive if you've ever had it done. But we're going to see how you guys would do it on an IQ test. So, at the bottom of your notes, you will notice a piece of paper, or a big blank. Bottom of the front. Okay? Now, what I want you to do is go ahead and put the number 1. Okay? Now, we're going to see how well you guys would have done on an IQ test to see if you could make it into the United States. So, here's your first question. It's going to have several different answers that have numbers. Just put whatever number it is. So, for question 1, we'll start easy. Which of the following is least like the other 4? Is it a bear, snake, cow, dog, or tiger? Go ahead and write down what number it is. Starting easy, so don't get super confident. Okay. Go ahead and put up with your fingers what number you think it is. What number you think it is. It's 5. Just kidding. It's 2. It's 2. You guys are like, oh, shoot, that was the easy one. Yeah, so one thing about the IQ test is there's so many different ways to be able to do an IQ test. The whole goal is that there are multiple different ways to find the same solution. That's what the IQ test is testing. Okay, let's do the next one, a little bit harder. If you rearrange the letters of Barbet, you would have the name of a ocean, country, state, city, or animal. Some of you are like, I'm way overthinking this.
Why does this determine how they can get into the United States? Like, they can get into the country?
Because, so the average American has an IQ quotient of around 100 to 110. There's a certain level, which is the level 60. If you test under the level 60 of an IQ test, it means that you have some sort of mental disability, whether it be Down syndrome or anything along those lines, and those people would have been rejected. So that's what you're looking for. You're looking for that average in there. At the same time, you can also find the geniuses in there who are up in the like 130s range, 140 range, that are much more likely to be admitted to the United States. Yeah?
Do they still do something like this?
IQ testing or for immigration?
For immigration.
No, they don't do immigration, but you do have to pass a citizenship test, which you guys all have to too. You guys have to pass a citizenship test, which most of you already have done. But basically, they have 100 questions. They choose 50 of them. And then they also do 10 short answer questions out loud about the United States and their government. And you also have to prove that you can speak and read English to become a citizen. Yeah, that's the civics test, which is copied and pasted from the U.S. citizenship test. Okay, so what is this answer? Put up your fingers. Okay, it is 5. It is an animal. Okay, getting harder. Oop, shapes. Get out your geometry. Which one of the 5 designs has the best comparison? Blank is to blank, as blank is to blank. So you can figure it out. Think about it. Write down what you think it is. All right, fingers up. What is it? It is 1. Good job. 1. Okay. Getting harder. Brother is to sister as niece is to.
Oh.
Seem you're feeling real confident. So you guys are the A pushers who you guys always overthink. It's like that assignment we did with the black codes and everybody way overthought it and did hours of work on it. Some people did because they overthought it. Oh, or you didn't do it at the assignment. Either one. Okay, what is the answer? What is it? 5. Good job. Okay, live is to evil as 5232 is to what? Oh, you're just whoa, there's numbers. Didn't know this was a math class. All right, fingers up. What is it? Okay, what is it? Okay, it is 3. 3. Good job. Okay, this one's the hardest one. If some smogs are Thors and some Thors are Thrains, then some smogs are definitely Thrains. This statement is true, false, or neither. This is when you guys are I give up. This is so hard. And then you guys are is this Lord of the Rings? Or what are we talking about? There's one word that makes a difference, by the way. And this will be a good life lesson for testing. All right, go ahead. What number is it? What number is it?
1 is 1.
Okay, it is 2. It is false. I will explain it. Now, okay, listen. So, hey, we still have a little bit to go. So the main thing right here is this word definitely. If you ever see definitely, which some of you did in your LEQ, where you guys were all African Americans did sharecropping, or all women were in textile mills in the North. Don't do that all or definitely thing. That's a struggle. Okay, now on the other side of the world, you had the Asians going to Angel Island. Now in this case, the thing that you need to know and highlight is it was much more difficult to immigrate. So much more difficult to immigrate. And if you will also circle racism and job competition, what is that most similar to? First immigration, and why were they racist against the Asians? In what location?
California.
In California in the gold rush. Good, that's what I was looking for, okay? So what happens is a lot of this is coming based on this. Jacob. Now what happens is that these people come over, and if you go to visit Angel Island, you're going to be very disappointed. And the reason why is because when you go there, there is nothing there. There is one little shack that has a couple pictures. It's basically a state park now, so you can go eat a picnic there. They destroyed everything because I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that comparing the two sides, people go to Ellis Island all the time. I think it's something like the #1 most visited national park other than the monuments in D.C. On the other side, Angel Island has been completely abandoned. There's a huge movement by the Asian community in San Francisco to rebuild that and be able to make it into a national park site so people can go visit it because it's very, very different between the two. We're going to talk about the Chinese a little bit later, but there's one more term, or two terms I need you to remember. First off, this is a good similarity. This is the ethnic communities. Most similar to, again, like we talked about before, Chinatown and things like that. This time we have Little Italy that comes out, which is because we have the Italians coming in. And the last term you need to know for your quiz, if you will star tenements. Star tenements. Now what a tenement is a tenement is basically a modern day slum. What happens is that immigrants begin to live in these houses that just look awful. If you want to kind of compare it, these are apartment buildings. If we were to split right between JT and Kevin and have the left side of the room, that would be the size of one single tenement apartment. This apartment has 3 families, up to 6 people in it, which means everybody on this side of the room would all be living in this space that's eating, drinking, sleeping. You don't have to worry about bathrooms because your apartment manager is not required by law to provide you with one. So you have to go all 10 stories down and go out to the outhouse in the back if your apartment building allows an outhouse or has one. You have no running water. They're not required to give you electricity or anything along those lines. Now the book that you need to star on here is Jacob Riis, How the Other Half Lives. Jacob Riis, How the Other Half Lives. That is what these pictures are from. Basically, these pictures are attempting to expose the issues of these tenements. Unfair treatment of these immigrants coming into the United States in terms of housing. Now, Jacob Riis's photos become extremely famous, and we'll talk about after the break about what impact they had. So, you are responsible for your quiz for knowing the following. You need to know the Industrialists. You need to know the Gilded Age, which is your race car notes. And then you need to know tenements and up. Tenements and up on your notes. Okay? And that is the end of class. So, get ready to go.